Welcome, Big 12 college football fans. I am your host, as always, Bryce Petty, followed by my esteemed colleague, Trevor Knight.
Bryce Petty.
It's the Trevor and Bryce show. And have we ever got into why it was the Trevor and Bryce show? Because I thought for a second we had a slight chance for it to be the Bryce and Trevor show.
No, I'm pretty much the alpha male. So it was no question. It was always Trevor and Bryce show. But
I don't know if you saw outside, though, because the Baylor Bears are the Big 12 champions of the 2021 season. Garrett, our producer, gave me a reserve spot outside. Therefore, I think it could be in question that Bryce and Trevor show might need to change.
I think our listeners are already so in tune with the way it rolls off the tongue that we're probably going to keep it that way.
But did you hear me, partner? Big 12 champs, baby.
The Big 12 champs.
Golly.
Right here on the Trevor and Bryce show, you have a Bear himself, Mr. Bryce Petty.
You know,
the Baylor Bears win the Big 12, the Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship for the first time since 2014 when you were leading the Baylor Bears. Bryce, you were at the game.
We were.
It was an unbelievable football game. Unbelievable football game. Came down, obviously, to the very last play, a couple inches right there. And football is still a game of inches. We found that out on Saturday. Bryce, tell us about the experience there at AT&T Stadium and what you saw from your Baylor Bears.
Yep. Well, I don't know how to capture the entirety of the game because to your point, it came down to the last 5 plays really, because they get a pass interference. It's first and goal on the 8. They get a pass interference, and then it's obviously half the distance, first and goal on the 4, and we stop them 4 times in a row. With Jaron McVay. What a cool story about him. If you guys don't know, 6-year senior, former walk-on, making the play of his life and inevitably sealing the victory for us. But I loved it because going into this game, it was a Spencer Sanders, Jekyll and Hyde. It was Hyde, I guess, or which one, whatever one's worse. Not that it's worse, but he did throw some bad picks. But the whole thing was, can we score off picks? And we were 2 for 4. Really with a missed field goal. It should have been 3 for 4 scoring off turnovers. But that was the game. I mean, 21-16, and we didn't score in the second half, which Oklahoma State, that's kind of been their MO. Their second half adjustments have always been really good, really all year long. And so this was really just, can Spencer Sanders protect the ball? And our defense played lights out. It played really, really well. And a Big 12 championship game, 21-16.
I know, crazy. You hit the nail right on the head, Bryce. Spencer Sanders played in the most important game of the year at that point for that team, with still playoff hopes alive. Big 12 championship obviously on the line. Spencer Sanders did what we thought he was going to slip up and do throughout the year, and he just kept proving us wrong and taking care of the football and playing really clean. And then, unfortunately, on Saturday at 11 a.m., just coughed it up too many times, which proved to be the difference in the game. Now, the turnover margin obviously is a big indicator whether you win or lose. Baylor won the turnover margin, but you got to tip your hat to the Baylor defense, to the Baylor offense. Blake Shapen. I mean, the guy come out as a freshman and lead that team to a Big 12 title. And I loved his interview right after. They're asking him, hey, how cool is this? And he would go on and on and on. But he said, hey, this is Gary Bohannon's Big 12 championship. It was just my job today to come in and finish it off for him. I thought that was really mature for a young guy to say something like that. And now, he's got that hardware forever. He's the MVP of the game. He's got a Big 12 championship ring that he's going to put on his shelving behind his desk when he's on Zoom selling insurance in a few years. And I hope he goes play for a while. He's got a very bright
future.
He does.
Just because we go sell insurance doesn't mean that he's going to.
Sorry, I didn't mean it in a negative way. I meant maybe in his 40s, whenever he's done playing in the league, right?
Yeah.
But he will have that hardware for the rest of his life and be remembered.
Yeah.
The Bryce Pettys of the world, the Blake Shapins of the world, right?
Oh, wow. It's good company for me. Thank you.
That get to hoist the trophy. So really cool. Bryce, I know you were at the game. I know you got to do a little voiceover stuff for some cool videos.
Yeah.
You are very relevant in the Baylor community.
Well, what I found out was I was, I think, 8th or 9th on the list. We had 8 guys that said no before
they all had head colds and they couldn't talk, right?
Yeah. So no, it's great, man. It's great to be a part of the program and play a small part. And again, off of what you said, I mean, Baylor is going to be very good in the next couple of years because of Blake Shapin. I mean, this is still, don't get it twisted. 21-16, there was a lot of defense this year. Baylor's defense, Oklahoma State's defense, Iowa State's defense, even Texas Tech's defense. I mean, defense was paramount this year, but this is still an offense-driven league, and I think it will continue to be. Blake Shapin is going to be driving the car for the next couple of years for the Baylor Bears, and I think, man, they're in good hands. He's got a moxie about him. The situation is never bigger, than he makes it, which I know is a weird thing to say, but as a young kid, even as an old dude, I mean, sometimes the situation, it seems big, and he never plays outside of himself, which I love. He didn't, have sternum exit his body for half a second, which I think, we saw against Texas Tech, which was great. I like when he's protected and leading the charge. So yeah, I mean, just a lot of good things. And Coach Aranda, again, I mean, 2-7 last year. We were picked 8th coming into this year, to be Big 12 champs and hit the road on the recruiting trail going, hey, we run Texas.
Yep.
That right there is a sentence that just has to be paused. I mean, Baylor football, and really crazy enough, and I'll say this, Baylor University is running Texas. When you look at, we are number 2 in the nation at men's basketball, women's basketball. Always good. Don't know where we are right now. That's not good to know. Should have known that before I said it. But, what we have been able to accomplish, not only football, but other sports as well. We are running the state of Texas, which I think that we both talked about when we were, growing up. It's everybody's wearing burnt orange, and it's you want to grow up and be the quarterback at University of Texas. And I think now it's starting to change to where, I don't know, maybe there might be some kids growing up saying I wanted to be a Baylor football quarterback.
Agreed. I mean, for a small private school in Waco, which Waco has really come alive in the past decade, right? I mean, you've had some really, really cool stuff go on there. Obviously, the new stadium when you were finishing up your career be built, I think is huge for the university, having a stadium on campus. But it is a desirable place to go. A great academic school and now also a powerhouse, and I'll say it, in the athletic world as well. And, Bryce, it's not just you, but it's guys like you, right? And that's what the reason that I went to Oklahoma is that when I walked those halls on a recruiting trip, you saw the history of championships, and you wanted to follow in those guys' footsteps. And so it's never just about you, right? You get to try and leave your jersey better than you found it, but it's the guys in front of you that are really paving the path to greatness. And so guys like yourself, winning a couple Big 12 titles that now these guys get to follow in your footsteps and so on and so forth. The culture of Baylor athletics is trending in a very hockey stick-like trajectory, and you couldn't ask for much more than that from an athletic department. So, again, hats off there. But Blake Shapin, you're going to just try and have to keep him from entering the MLB draft. I've heard he's quite the baseball player and could be going out for to play a little shortstop for the Bears this year. But that's neither here nor there. The other big piece, when you got a head coach quarterback tandem, typically you're going to have at least a pretty good football team. And as it stands today, the Baylor Bears are going to retain Dave Aranda. He's got to get through a couple more speed bumps where they may throw $1 billion at him to try and get him to Oregon or somewhere like that. But as of right now, Dave Aranda has voiced that he is going to stay in Waco and be that figure for the Baylor Bears. Bryce, what does that mean for the university and the football team to have a guy that is so culturally driven, that has now proven that he can win at the highest level in that conference? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, I think it speaks a lot to, one, his ability to coach, but two, just the culture around him. When you look at him and when you hear him talk, a lot of it's just ball. And so for us to be able to protect him, I say protect him, meaning that, we were able to turn off his cell phone and keep him in house is huge going forward, because you're in a world right now where, kind of the coaching carousel word is thrown around. And so it's huge for Baylor to continually stamp really that legacy of what Baylor athletics is right now and what it's going to be in the future. There's going to be some change involved in the Big 12. I think there's going to be some change, obviously, nationally with what's going on at, again, LSU, USC, Notre Dame, Miami even. I mean, these are powerhouse programs that have new faces. When you're a recruit, that matters. So for him to go hit the trail and guys know, the recruiting trail that is, and guys know that, man, this guy's here, I think that's going to say a lot. And we were talking about it last week. I mean, when you have a coach come in your house, I never had that opportunity, so I'd like to hear from you what that means or what that's like. But to have a coach, sit there and you ask him, like, hey, are you going to be here? Like, is this going to be something that I can, go ahead and know, knowing that these next 4 years are going to be with somebody that I'm sitting here looking at right now in my living room. That's a big deal. So I think what Coach Aranda's done over these last 2 seasons now is only the beginning. I really, really do. I think that he's going to continually recruit well. I think he's going to continually put guys around these student athletes to make them better men. Which is a great thing. It's because too often and that's what's hard right now, I think, too, when you start looking at all these zeros being thrown around, to remember that, man, this is you're talking about 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and you just have to be careful, I feel like, with a spirit of humility. That ball is not for you, right? It's not that you're going to come in and you're not special because you play football, right? And I think we've kind of always, especially as we were growing up, it was just because it was fun. Now there's all this money involved in everything, and it's about those guys. It's the Coach Arandas, and there's plenty of them out there, but the Coach Arandas that show you that, man, ball is a vehicle. Use it, to the best of your ability, but grow with it, right? Meaning that, like, you're going to grow into a man, and that's what I like about him. So I love the fact that he's come out, kind of presented that he's going to stay here. Hope he stays here for a long time. Family grows up there, because it's a good fit.
Yeah,
a good fit.
Absolutely. I think Baylor football is in good hands. Now, you mentioned the coaching carousel, and
talk about another one, huh?
We will talk about another one. Lincoln Riley departs from Oklahoma. He is settled in out in Los Angeles, hit the recruiting trail, and the Oklahoma athletic director, Joe Castiglione, has been hard at work to find their guy, as they say. And as of last night, arriving on an airplane with the band and the cheerleaders and all the fans, and then the press conference today as the official announcement, the Oklahoma Sooners found their guy in former defensive coordinator for the Oklahoma Sooners for 13 years, but more recently for Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. Brent Venables is the new head coach for the Oklahoma Sooners. And, Bryce, a lot of the things that you just said about Dave Aranda and what he has built culturally there and his mentality of developing young men is what I heard out of Brent Venables today. And he owes a lot of those attributes, those successes, that mentality to former coaches that shaped his mentality. And some of those are legendary head coach Bob Stoops, who's being inducted into the Hall of Fame here in just a few days, and also Dabo Swinney out at Clemson, that taught them that developing the young man for life way beyond football will permeate into the way that he shows up and plays on Saturday in this game of football. It goes way past just the X's and O's, and he went through a list of coming in, being a good man, how they can develop emotionally, mentally, educationally, spiritually, and then finally as a football player. And I think that's an important note for all of us listening, that whatever we do out there, it's not always about us, and it's not always about just what we're doing. Everything that we do affects other people and affects our future, right? So to have somebody to come in like Brent Venables, who cares about the program, who's exciting in the way that he coaches, and to bring that background from these legendary coaches into this locker room. I think Oklahoma is now, not rocking around anymore. They've found some stability, and now it's just up to Brent and his staff that he assembles to pick up some of the pieces that have fallen apart and hopefully get back on trajectory of what Oklahoma football has been. I don't think they're going to take a huge step back because of this hire. I think that they'll stabilize out. They'll get some good recruits that come along with Coach Venables and move along forward and find some success pretty early on. Bryce, what are your thoughts?
No, I love it, man. And I think it was really interesting how patient Oklahoma was. And I don't know if it was patience because of on Brent's side, or Coach Venables' side, saying, because what was interesting is how many times he's been offered. Brent Venables, this is not his first time to be offered a head coaching job. So it had to be the right job, and so I love that they were able to be patient, and I think that OU knew the whole time that this was their guy. And so I'm with you, buddy. I don't think that they're going to take a step back at all. Now again, in saying that, they've had I think we both would consider a pretty damn good offensive mind, leading the helm there for the last 7 years. At least on the play calling front. There's been some talks about Jeff Lebby from Ole Miss coming over, which would be, I think, an incredible get for them. Also played at OU, was our assistant O-line coach at Baylor when I was there. Brilliant mind, runs a little bit of the Coach Brawl's system. So I think guys are going to have fun in that system, and you've seen what he's done with Matt Corral and Ole Miss. Obviously, he's got a lot of playmakers in the SEC, but, man, if you can play well in that type of system in the SEC, it's going to translate, And so I think that both of those guys hitting the recruiting trail with Brent Venables leading the helm, I think it's going to be – I think you guys aren't going to miss a step. And I think that Bob Stoops is going to stay involved, right?
Absolutely. He will. And if you look – what has been the kind of the hiccup for Oklahoma football over the last 7 years or decade, really, or really 2 decades? It's the defense. Well, when Brent Venables was there, they fielded teams that went to 4 national championships, which means they were probably playing a little bit better defense that we've seen in the past, right? Then he goes to Clemson and takes them to 4 national championships. So if he can bring a guy in that's going to be dynamic, fast, and up to par of Oklahoma offensive abilities.
Right.
And he handles the defense and gets those guys really playing hard-nosed football. I mean, this guy has coached. He's been a position coach or a coordinator for 26 seasons, and he has 26 straight winning seasons. He's never had a losing season. He's been to 8 national championships. He's won 3. This guy has been there before.
Right.
He just inked the deal this past year, I believe. He's the highest paid assistant coach in college football. He's making $2.5 million as the Clemson defensive coordinator.
And don't pay for a dang thing.
So to your point, he has absolutely been offered job after job. He mentioned it today in his press conference that his family asked him, "Dad, why aren't you taking the Auburn job as close as last year?"
Yeah.
He said, "I, in my heart, didn't feel like I was ready for that leap." And you're talking about a guy that's been a coach for 26 years.
Right.
And finally, the OU job is the one that he wants. It's the one that he's going after. And I appreciate the fact that even he on his side was not just reaching for some goal out there.
Right.
It shows me that he cares about being successful. So he's going to take the necessary steps to do so. So as a fan, as an alumni, I am incredibly excited about the Brent Venables hire, and we'll see how he can get that team rallied around. I know he's got some pieces, like we mentioned, to pick up especially in the recruiting trail.
Yep.
But I have no doubt that he'll do so.
What do you think happens with 13?
I think that Caleb Williams will stay. I think that he's You hear rumors all over the place, but you think about it. Now you've named your guy. Obviously, for Caleb, it really is dependent on who they bring in as the offensive coordinator. But he's only had 1 year with Lincoln. It's not like he's been in a system forever, and I don't want to have to deal with getting into a new deal. I think whoever they bring in will be up to par of what Caleb Williams wants. And now that Spencer's out, Caleb is the guy at the University of Oklahoma. Why run away from that, in my opinion?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I get it.
Right.
You bounce back and forth, but a lot of that was due to Lincoln.
Right.
Lincoln's gone. If Lincoln is your guy, maybe we see you go. But he just, is about to sign, the number one quarterback in Malachi coming up.
Right.
Dude, you are the guy at the University of Oklahoma. You can be the guy to take Brent Venables in year one to Big 12 title potentially, and maybe SEC, depending on what happens this offseason, whatever it looks like. I think he stays. I think he plays the bowl game. If not, we're going to suit somebody up that nobody's ever heard of.
What would be really interesting? Being that we're both in Dallas right now, pretty highly touted recruit that came out of Southlake just last year, Quinn Ewers, has come out and said that it's, I think, Texas Tech and Texas. It would be very interesting if Caleb Williams does not suit up to play this game and says, hey, I'm going somewhere else. There is nobody on campus leading what is a very talented OU team with a new coach. Quinn Ewers. Man, I think how do you not look at Norman?
I think if you're Quinn Ewers, you look at Norman. If I'm Norman, I'm not looking at Quinn Ewers.
Why?
I don't know. I like to believe in kids, and I don't know him, so this isn't even fair to me to say. Like, this comes off like I'm just bashing this kid. I just have never been drawn to his demeanor.
Yeah,
I haven't been drawn to the way that he's handled his entire recruit. I don't know. This is not fair for me to say, but I've just
we're in the media, so you can.
I'm not a big fan of the kid.
Yeah.
I watched him play with no other. I didn't really care at all. My wife went to Southlake Carroll, so we went and watched what they call the Dodge Bowl. It was Riley Dodge, the head coach of Southlake Carroll, versus Todd Dodge, his father, who's now coaching Austin Westlake. They've got Cade Klubnik, who's going to Clemson to play quarterback. And I watched these two guys go head-to-head, and I would take the Klubnik kid that's going to Clemson 10 times out of 10 over Ewers. And I get it. He's a great player. He was the highest recruited player ever, so he's obviously got talent. I don't know. I just had this feeling in my gut, I guess, where I just wasn't a huge fan. But it's a great point to get back on track, Bryce. I think it's a great point. If Caleb Williams decides that he's going to depart from Norman, which I don't anticipate, that would be obviously a great opportunity to step in if you're any transferring quarterback to have an opportunity to compete for a job.
I think it'd be interesting, man, because again, going and not to just beat a dead horse here, but if the case happens where Caleb Williams says I'm following Lincoln, to your point, there is a man walking around that campus, crazy enough, as talented as that team is, as historic as it is, as good as it's been the last 6, 7, 8 years, this last decade, that you would be leading that team out with somebody that no one knows.
It's very eerily similar to the 2015 Texas A&M Aggies, and the only reason I know that is because I was the guy that took advantage of the situation. But you had Kyle Allen, who isn't a starter right now, but has started multiple games in the NFL for the Washington football team and the Panthers, and the other guy they had was the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray. Mm-hmm. You had two five-star guys on campus. And right before the bowl game, right now, same situation, both decide they're leaving, opens the door, Jake Hubenak to come in, who transferred in from Belen Junior College and gets a start against Lamar Jackson in the bowl game, and the Aggies lose. But that allowed me to step in and have an opportunity to compete for a job and take over down there.
So do you think that they'll hit the transfer portal, though?
I think they hit whoever the best guy is, I think because of that reason, Spencer already decided he's leaving, okay? So it's not happening all at the same time, kind of like Kyler and Kyle. I think if I was Caleb Williams, I'm staying right where I'm at.
Yeah, I hear you.
Unless whoever they hire to run the offense comes in, he's like, hey, this just doesn't fit me. You know, I think he needs to at least wait until that happens.
Hey, if Coach Levy comes in, his butt better stay because he's going to put up points and he's going to be dynamic.
No doubt.
I think he'd be.
And he's so talented,
it'd be really
man.
good. So for our listeners too, and I'd actually love to hear this process. So what is the transfer portal like when you enter the transfer portal and you go to, is that a dark room? Is it a
I didn't
super
have a
bright
transfer
room?
portal.
So like a cafeteria where they all just kind of walk around you? And
I have no idea. When I transferred, it was not a transfer portal.
It wasn't?
What I had to do was go and do my own homework. I put together a list of like 15 schools that I'd even be interested in, whether it was, quarterback coach.
Who were your top three?
My top three ended up being A&M, Auburn, and LSU.
So you're going SEC all day.
I was. I wanted to get out of the Big 12.
Yeah, that was for NFL, or you just wanted to get out of.
I wanted to play at a school. I was hoping. I didn't know when I put my letter out there, and I'll get to that. I'll get back to that in a second. I didn't know if it was gonna be like Tulsa, North Texas, somebody like that, or if it was gonna be, a big time school. I was hoping.
What does that mean when you put that out? You didn't know.
I didn't know who would respond. So here's how it works.
Okay.
So I made a list of the schools where desirable for me based off of situation, like they had a quarterback graduating or leaving, geographic location. I'd love to be close to home, right? Fifth year, be close to mom and dad, have them come watch me. And then also the coach and the scheme, right? And so I put that list together. I went to our compliance department, and they drafted a letter and sent it to the compliance department of those 15 schools, which then relayed it to the coaching staff that I was eligible for transfer. I was seeking transfer. And then the communication rules were still all there. So they'd have like a GA follow me on Twitter and like toss me a message or something. And then I would call up there. Yeah. And then I would call up there. And so it all happened pretty quick. And then once that happened, I started getting calls from people that weren't really on that list. But, I mean, it wasn't like this long drawn-out process. It was like Gus Malzahn called me. He got me on the phone with Cam Newton. Cam Newton was a transfer to Auburn. So Cam was like, which was kind of cool. Cam was like, hey, man, you can go there and be successful as a transfer. Boom, this is cool. So I talked to Rhett Lashley, who's now the head coach at SMU. He was the QB coach there at the time.
Yeah.
I talked to Rhett, and I talked to Gus Malzahn 15 times in that week. Les Miles called him. He was at LSU. Hey, we think you got a shot here. You can walk in and compete for the job right away. We think you have a good chance to win that job if you come in and play well.
And who was there in 2015?
It was like Jeremy Johnson and Sean something.
Okay.
So good opportunity to come in and compete, right? And at Auburn, that was Auburn. At it wasn't Danny Lanning yet. I forget who it was, but either way, at both schools, it was kind of the in-between, right? It wasn't Jarrett Stidham yet. It wasn't Joe Burrow yet. It was an opportunity to come and compete. And then I called A&M because that's the only SEC school in Texas close to home from San Antonio. And at the time, Kyler and Kyle were still there, and Kevin Sumlin said, no, we're good. I appreciate the call, but, we'd love to have your leadership, blah, 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 blah. But we've got these two guys. We believe in them. Well, that week, they both depart, so my phone rings, conversation changes. So it came down to those three, and, ended up, making the decision to go to A&M and, went through spring ball, battled it out, and got named the starter the Monday after spring ball, and the rest is history. That's the reason that I left. But, I didn't have the transfer portal,
Gotcha.
and so I honestly don't know what that looks like. Nowadays with social media and everything else, I don't know how the communication, even works. But it is interesting. It creates another level of communication for all these coaches, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there in Norman, but hey, to wrap up today, let's go around the Big 12, just super high level, 30,000-foot view. Just, Bryce, some of your thoughts on this season, because we are officially done with Big
done
12
with the Big
football
12.
for the year. Of course, we've got our bowl games, and guys, we'll be back next week and then a few more times as we go through the bowl season, and we'll keep you updated on Twitter and everything else. But, Bryce, as far as the Big 12 goes, the Baylor Bears hoist the trophy, but what are a couple of your kind of high-level thoughts of how the Big 12 shaped out this year?
Yeah, I think it was just a season of surprises, right? And I think it's just probably easy enough said to the entire NCAA picture. But I mean, if you go back, it was OU who was a shoe-in to the playoff, a shoe-in for the Heisman, a shoe-in for the number 1 overall pick, followed closely by a crowd favorite, Matt Campbell and Iowa State, led by Brock Purdy, who's been there for 78 games, and Breece Hall, who's set the NCAA record for touchdowns, consecutive touchdowns. And then it was just everybody else. So it was crazy how, the whole season kind of transpired, in that picture. And then, so it was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to watch every week kind of unfold and games that were played at home. I'd love to find that out, just record home and away. Just games at home just seemed to play such a dominant factor, especially out of this whole COVID world that we were in last year. So it's just great to have college football back, I think, in general. But then secondly, just this coaching care. I mean, we're about to have a whole new face of what, Big 12 Media Day is going to look like. I don't know if we're going to have a booth set up or not. We ought to, with beers and have the coaches come around. Garrett, I'll get you on that. But look, man, no more Lincoln Riley, no more Gary Patterson, which is just
no more Matt Wells out tech.
Yeah, I know, and it's just crazy to think about that as no more Gary Patterson, who might be in Burnt Orange as an analyst. That one's crazy to me. I thought that dude would just ride off into the sunset. Probably got bought a space in Montana, play his guitar by a campfire. So new face in Texas Tech. New head coach, Texas Tech, never coached at the collegiate level from a head coach perspective. Joey McGuire, and we've all talked about him. I think so highly of him. I think Texas Tech is going to be in a great spot, and they're hiring really well right now and getting some recruits. So, anyways, I think between those two, just a complete shamble of what we all thought or expected in the Big 12 to unfold. Definitely didn't happen. Big 12 championship won by my Baylor Bears. And then secondly, just new faces everywhere, even from quarterbacks, hoisting MVPs. It's just a season of surprises. So that's kind of my little snapshot of the recap.
I love it.
Give me your recap.
Yeah, I could go a million directions here, and we could honestly do 10 shows on this because I think there's so much to talk about. I'll pick 2 as well. The first is, I now, as a former player, and I guess it's because I'm getting a little bit older, I absolutely love watching young players step up into their new role and become those household names, right? We talked about Blake Shapen. This is a freshman, right? I mean, he's way younger than us now. But I remember I feel the feeling inside me of what he's going through. And now he's got an MVP trophy on his shelf, like we talked about, and he's got a Big 12 champion. But even the older guys, I mean, Brock Purdy, right? He's left his jersey better than he found it since the time that he stepped on campus there at Ames. Now he'll go on and have an opportunity to play in the NFL, and I love that about college football is you get this. This constant churn because it's 4 years and 4 years and 4 years. And so you look back at all your historical favorite players of all times. It's like, okay, we are watching those guys now that are going to be household names forever. The Adrian Petersons of the world, right? The Sam Bradfords of the world, the Colt McCoys of the world, the Colin Kleins of the world. Like all these guys that have come through these programs, we're getting to watch those guys right now. So to your point about new faces, I have loved watching guys this year step up. Bijan Robinson, what a dynamic player.
Coming back.
Yes. Roshan Johnson coming in his relief. Those two guys are going to be a stable there in Austin, right? Caleb Williams, you hope the best for him moving forward. And these are just a few names that I'm throwing out. It's all over the Big 12. So I love that. But in terms of a surprise to this year, I mean, that's the other part of college football is just the unknown. You had Spencer Rattler just primed and ready to win the Heisman, be the first overall pick, and lead the Sooners to a national championship, and he's transferring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had Baylor, who was, like, to your point, picked 8th. Dave Aranda comes in and shows what coaching can do to a football team. They win the Big 12 title. You see a guy that's just, hey, pick us wherever you want us. We're going to field a team that competes every year up in Oklahoma State, you know, with everything that they do up there in Stillwater. I mean, it's just I love college football, and I love this conference because you see all this stuff going on, and now you can look back at the 2021 chapter and say, man, that was a crazy one. And
Are we turning the page on OU, by the way? Is this about to be a new chapter of – I mean, we went 6 back-to-back. I mean, it's not the SEC, meaning that Alabama's not going to win the SEC every year. Georgia's not going to win the SEC, you know, which one of those it was going to be. You know, Big 12's for the last 6 years, it has been OU. Is this a new chapter that we're turning here?
This year, absolutely. Next year, it is
it's a new year.
It is yet to be written, my friend.
Right.
It is yet to be written. And that's why the Trevor and Bryce show will be back next season covering all
stay with
things.
us. Stay with us because we have a few more shows left. We're gonna this was just kind of a recap. Keep it light, keep it loose. We're gonna go kind of a deep dive into this is homework, partner. So you know, do what you need to do there. I know you cheated off everybody in high school and college, but
never read a book, never read a textbook.
Deep dive, Spark Notes. Deep dive into all things bowl season coming up. We got 7 teams in the Big 12 going to bowls, buddy.
Yeah, we do.
You know, with two big ones, Fiesta Bowl with Oklahoma State, the Sugar Bowl with my Baylor Bears. So we got some good bowl games to get you guys in tune for. But as always, thank you guys so much for riding with us the whole year. I hope we're possibly a bright spot. I don't know. I think I've gotten better. You were always great at it. But I've just steady worked. You know, that's just my whole life. I just had to work for it.
1% better every day.
It wasn't gifted to me
really
like yours.
embodied the Baylor Dave Aranda mentality of just wake up every day, get your hard hat and your lunch pail, and let's go to freaking work, man. Hey, a big shout out to Bet Rivers, our sponsor. We appreciate that. If you guys have not joined yet, you need to. There's still a lot of bowl games to win a lot of money on, so go do that. But, Bryce, appreciate you, man. I love doing this, and we love that you guys tune in with us every week. So with that, another episode of the Trevor and Bryce Show.